The city lights of New Terra gleamed against the night sky, their glow reflecting off the towering structures that stretched high above the streets. Among the bustling crowds of humans and aliens, one figure stood alone in the shadows, watching but never stepping forward. Nyxera had lived on Earth for as long as she could remember, yet she never felt like she belonged. She was the last of her kind, a species known as the Volari. With delicate, bioluminescent markings along her skin and large, expressive eyes that shimmered like deep water, she was considered strange. She had been abandoned as a child, left outside a human shelter with no memory of her parents. The caretakers did their best to raise her, but humans were all she knew. Other aliens from distant worlds had formed their own communities, yet none had room for a lonely Volari orphan. No one wanted to bond with her, let alone be her mate. She had long since stopped hoping. Tonight, she sat at the edge of a marketplace, pulling her hood lower to hide her face. The stalls bustled with activity as merchants called out their wares: fresh fruit, warm bread, glowing trinkets from alien worlds. The air smelled of spices and rain, the kind of scent that reminded her of something distant, something forgotten. "Hey, are you okay?" Nyxera flinched. A voice. "Close." She turned and saw him, a human male crouching a few feet away, watching her with concern. He had an easy posture, relaxed but not careless. His hazel eyes were warm, filled with something she rarely saw in others: genuine kindness. I'm fine," she muttered, looking away. "You sure?" He tilted his head, studying her. "You look kind of lost." She hesitated. Was she lost? No. She knew this city like the back of her hand. And yet, inside, she had felt lost for as long as she could remember. "I don't have anywhere to go," she admitted before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air between them. The human didn't laugh, didn't look uncomfortable. He simply sat down next to her, stretching his legs out like they had all the time in the world. "Yeah, I get that feeling sometimes," he said, watching the crowds. "Name's Dorand, by the way." Nyxera glanced at him, unsure if she should tell him her name. But something about him made her feel safe. "Nyxera," she whispered. Doran smiled, and for a moment, she forgot the cold loneliness that had wrapped around her heart for so long. "Well, Nyxera, since you're sitting out here all alone, how about we grab something to eat?" He gestured to the food stalls. "I know a place that makes the best Orion bread. It's sweet, kinda melts in your mouth." Nyxera hesitated. She had spent years avoiding interactions, afraid of rejection. Yet, here was a human, offering kindness without asking for anything in return. Slowly, she nodded. "All right," she said softly. Doran grinned. "Great choice. Come on." As she stood and followed him, something strange stirred in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The marketplace hummed with life as Doran led Nyxera through the winding streets. The scent of freshly baked Orion bread filled the air, mingling with the faint spice of alien fruits and sizzling meats from vendor stalls. Nyxera kept close to him, unsure why she felt safer that way. "You're gonna love this place," Doran said, glancing back at her with a grin. "Best food in the district. I promise." Nyxera wasn't used to promises. Too many had been broken before. But something about the way he spoke made her want to believe him. They reached a small corner cafe, nestled between towering buildings. A warm glow spilled from inside, inviting and comforting. The sign above the entrance was written in both human and galactic common. Doran held the door open. "After you." Nyxera hesitated before stepping inside. The air was thick with the scent of fresh bread, and the quiet murmur of voices gave the place a gentle, welcoming atmosphere. She had passed by this cafe many times, but never dared to enter. A round, elderly human woman behind the counter beamed when she saw Doran. "Well, if it isn't my favorite troublemaker." Doran chuckled. "You wound me, Mira. I'm nothing but an upstanding citizen." Mira rolled her eyes, but then noticed Nyxera. Her expression softened. "And who's this?" Nyxera shifted under the woman's kind gaze, unsure how to respond. Doran answered for her. "This is Nyxera." She's trying Orion bread for the first time. Is that so? Mira smiled warmly. Well then, you're in for a treat, dear. She disappeared behind the counter and returned moments later with a steaming piece of golden bread, lightly dusted with sweet spice. Nixera took it carefully. The moment she bit into it, her eyes widened. The bread melted on her tongue, soft and rich with just the right amount of sweetness. Doran laughed at her expression. Told you. She swallowed, her bioluminescent markings faintly glowing. It's incredible. Mira chuckled. Glad you like it, sweetheart. As they ate, Doran leaned back in his chair, watching her. So, Nixera, tell me something about you. Anything. She hesitated, not used to sharing. But Doran's gaze held no judgment, only curiosity. I don't really know much about myself, she admitted, running a finger along the table. I was abandoned as a child. I don't know where I come from. All I know is that I'm Valari, and there aren't any others left. Doran's smile faded slightly. No family? She shook her head. For a moment, there was silence. Then Doran spoke, his voice softer. I get it. Nixera looked at him, surprised. You do? Yeah. He exhaled. I grew up in the outer colonies. My parents were asteroid miners. One day, an accident happened, and well, it was just me after that. A strange ache bloomed in Nixera's chest. She had spent years thinking she was the only one who felt this way, adrift, without a place to belong. But here was this human, smiling despite his losses, despite his past. How do you do it? She asked before she could stop herself. How do you keep going? Doran's gaze met hers, steady and warm. Because I believe that, sooner or later, we find people who make all the loneliness worth it. Nixera's breath caught. No one had ever said something like that to her before. She looked away, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. You're strange for a human. Doran laughed. Takes one to know one. She found herself smiling just a little. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. The days that followed felt different. Nixera wasn't sure why, but after that night at the cafe, something shifted inside her. She had spent most of her life avoiding people, expecting rejection, yet Doran treated her like she was just normal. Like she belonged. They began meeting more often. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Doran would show up at the marketplace with a grin and some new excuse to drag her along. Sometimes it was for food, other times to explore the quieter parts of the city, away from the overwhelming crowds. At first, Nixera told herself she was only going because it was easier than saying no. But the truth was, she enjoyed being around him. He made her laugh, something she hadn't done in years. And when he talked about his own struggles, he didn't sound bitter. He just accepted them, as if pain was something you carried but didn't let define you. One evening, they sat on the rooftop of an old building, watching the city lights flicker below. The air was cool, filled with the distant hum of speeders passing overhead. Doran leaned back on his elbows, looking relaxed as ever. You know, he said, glancing at her, I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for. Nixera frowned. Brave? I hide from people. That's not bravery. It is, Doran countered. You keep going, even when things are tough. You haven't given up. That's more than a lot of people can say. She didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever framed her existence as anything other than pathetic before. But Doran had a way of seeing things differently, twisting the perspective in a way that made the world seem a little less cruel. A breeze drifted by, causing her bioluminescent markings to flicker softly. She caught Doran watching them, his expression thoughtful. Your glow is beautiful, he said, his voice quieter than before. Nixera's breath hitched. She wasn't used to compliments, at least, not ones that didn't feel forced or insincere. People usually stared at her markings like she was some oddity, something unnatural. But Doran's gaze held no judgment, only quiet admiration. She looked away, feeling warmth spread through her chest. It's just part of what I am. Yeah, Doran said with a small smile. And what you are is pretty amazing. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, but something else. Something heavier. Nixera felt it pressing against her, a strange, unfamiliar tension. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it made her heart beat faster, made her more aware of the way Doran's fingers rested casually on the rooftop beside hers. She could have moved, could have shifted away, created distance. But for some reason, she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Why are you so kind to me?" Doran exhaled, his gaze softening. "Because you deserve it." No one had ever said that to her before. The words settled deep inside her, a warmth that spread slowly, like the first light of dawn breaking through endless night. Nixera had never felt this way before. The warmth in her chest whenever Doran smiled at her, the way her heart skipped when he brushed against her by accident. It was unfamiliar, strange, but not unwelcome. She had spent years convincing herself she didn't need anyone, that she was better off alone. But now, with Doran, she wasn't so sure. They spent more time together, sometimes talking for hours, other times simply enjoying the silence. She found herself looking forward to their meetings, searching for him in the marketplace, waiting for that familiar grin and the way his eyes lit up when he saw her. But part of her was terrified. She had never belonged anywhere, never been wanted. So, why would Doran be any different? That doubt gnawed at her, whispering cruel possibilities. Maybe he just felt sorry for her. Maybe, eventually, he'd realize she wasn't worth his time. That thought haunted her, and one night, she finally gave voice to it. They were sitting on a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The stars shimmered above, casting a faint silver glow over the buildings. Nixera's bioluminescent markings pulsed gently, a reflection of the storm inside her. "Doran," she said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. He turned to her, his usual relaxed expression shifting into something more attentive. "Yeah." She hesitated, gripping the fabric of her cloak tightly. "Why do you stay?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "With me," she clarified, struggling to find the right words. "You could spend your time with anyone. Someone human. Someone normal." Doran stared at her for a long moment before exhaling, rubbing the back of his neck. "You think I care about that?" She looked away. "Everyone else does." "Well, I'm not everyone else." His voice was firm, but not unkind. Nixera glanced at him, uncertain. Doran leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Look, Nixera, I don't spend time with you because I feel sorry for you. I do it because I like being around you. Because you're interesting and smart and, I don't know, you make the world feel different." Her throat tightened. "Different how?" Doran gave her a small smile. "Lighter." She swallowed hard. No one had ever said something like that to her before. Doran hesitated, then reached out slowly, as if afraid she might pull away. His fingers brushed over her hand, light, hesitant, but undeniably real. Her skin tingled where he touched her. "You're not some outsider, Nixera," he said softly. "Not to me." She should have been afraid of this. She had always been afraid of getting close, of hoping for something more, of wanting what she could never have. But in that moment, as she looked into Doran's steady, unwavering gaze, the fear faded just a little. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. Word of their closeness spread faster than Nixera expected. At first, it was just whispers, glances from vendors in the marketplace, murmured words she couldn't quite catch. But then the looks became longer, sharper. Some humans seemed amused, others disapproving. Even aliens from other species regarded her with confusion. Nixera had never cared what people thought before. She had lived her life in the shadows, unnoticed, unwanted. But now, with Doran by her side, it was impossible to stay invisible. She could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. And worse, she could see it reaching Doran too. It came to a head one evening when a group of human men blocked their path near the cafe. Doran tensed beside her. "Can I help you?" One of the men, tall with sharp eyes, crossed his arms. "Didn't expect you to be the type to take in strays, Doran." Nixera stiffened. She had heard worse before, but hearing it now, directed at her while Doran stood beside her, It stung in a way she hadn't anticipated. Doran's expression darkened. "Watch your mouth." The man smirked. "Relax. Just seems odd, that's all. Plenty of real women out there, and you pick this?" His gaze flicked to Nixera, like she was nothing more than an oddity. A cold knot formed in her stomach. She took a small step back. "Doran, maybe we should." "No," his voice was firm, his hazel eyes flashing with something she hadn't seen before, anger. "You don't talk about her like that." The group chuckled. "Easy, we're just messing with you." "But seriously, Doran, people are starting to notice. Maybe it's time you—" "I don't give a damn what people think," Doran cut in. His voice was steady, unwavering. "Nixera isn't something for you to judge. She's better than any of you." The men exchanged glances, but Doran didn't wait for a response. He grabbed Nixera's hand, warm, solid, and pulled her away. They walked in silence, the tension between them thick. When they finally reached the quieter part of the city, Doran stopped, exhaling sharply. "I'm sorry," he muttered. Nixera frowned. "Why?" He turned to her, running a hand through his hair. "Because you shouldn't have to deal with that. With people like them." She studied him, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists. She had spent so much time thinking she would always be alone, always unwanted. But here was Doran, standing beside her, defending her without hesitation. Slowly, she reached out, placing a hand over his. "You didn't have to do that." He looked at her, something raw and unspoken in his expression. "Yeah, I did." Nixera swallowed, her markings glowing faintly in the dim light. She had never been someone's choice before. Never been defended, never had someone stand beside her when it mattered. A part of her wanted to pull away, to protect herself from the ache of wanting something she didn't deserve. But instead, she whispered, "I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Doran let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "Nixera, I'd fight the whole damn city if it meant keeping you safe." Her breath caught. Doran was still holding her hand, his thumb brushing against her skin, a touch that sent warmth spreading through her. For a moment, everything else, the whispers, the stares, the judgment, faded. It was just them. And suddenly, she wasn't afraid anymore. The world felt different now. Nixera had spent so much of her life expecting rejection, convinced she would always be an outsider. But Doran had shattered that belief with nothing more than his stubborn refusal to let her push him away. And now, as they stood together on the rooftop where they often met, the city stretched below them, she realized something terrifying. She didn't just care about him. She loved him. The thought sent a jolt of fear and longing through her. Love was dangerous. Love meant risk, meant giving someone the power to hurt you. But as she looked at Doran, his easy smile, the warmth in his eyes, she wondered if maybe, just this once, it was worth it. Doran leaned back, watching the stars. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Nixera blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, getting out of the city. Seeing more. There's a whole galaxy out there, you know." She hesitated. "I wouldn't even know where to start." Doran turned his head to her, a playful glint in his eyes. "That's the fun part. We make it up as we go." Nixera let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "You really are strange, human. And you really like saying that," he teased. She smiled, but then her expression softened. "Do you mean it?" Doran sat up, facing her fully. "Yeah, I do. Look, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I know what I want." He reached out, brushing a strand of silver-blue hair from her face. "And what I want is you." Her breath caught. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights flickered below, the stars shimmered above, and the space between them felt charged, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, slowly, hesitantly, Nixera reached out, pressing her palm against his. "You really are reckless," she murmured. Doran grinned. "Takes one to know one." She rolled her eyes, but before she could respond, he leaned in, just enough for her to meet him halfway. The kiss was soft, careful, as if he was giving her the chance to pull away. But she didn't. She wouldn't, because for the first time in her life, Nixera wasn't alone. She was wanted, and as Doran pulled her closer, she knew, whatever came next, they would face it together.